met J-Lo in her dressing room, which was really cool. And I remember I couldn't say a word because I was just in shock. Hey guys, I'm Sofia Carson and I am here with 17 for a look back at my career. This is then versus now. I have been in the music and film industry since I was about 16 years old, and I'm gonna show you guys how my career has changed since then. Biggest goal for myself then versus now. You know, I think then it was making my dreams come true, and now I can say it with my heart in my hands and with a big smile on my face that I've made most of my dreams come true, which is such an incredible thing to say out loud. And I would say what has changed recently is, you know, I for the first time was able to produce a film and to be a part of every aspect of the storytelling of a film. And I would love to continue that and to produce more films and to be a part of storytelling in that way. And of course, throughout the years, I've had the honor of being a UNICEF ambassador and knowing in my heart that the most important thing that I can do with my voice is to give and to give back to young girls. So my focus for the rest of my life will always be being a voice to young girls and my work with UNICEF. I would say it takes me about the same amount of time to memorize my lines than it did then. I, for some reason, always really enjoyed the memorization process. I think it's the nerd in me, so I always kind of saw it as like studying and doing my homework and prepping my character, so I would say it takes me the same amount of time then than it does now. Process for memorizing my lines. I think that has changed a bit now, because I think then it was more so about the memorization and the performance, and now it's much more so about absorbing and becoming the character. So sometimes those lines, the memorization happens as I'm diving into the script and as I'm dissecting her and becoming her, the memorization becomes part of the process rather than just like the physical act of sitting there and memorizing lines, if that makes any sense. I would say then versus now, it takes you the same amount of time to get ready. It's about 2 hours of hair and makeup, but it depends on the role. If it's, for instance, a movie that I just shot recently and I produced called Purple Hearts for Netflix, my character didn't really wear much makeup at all, so it was like about an hour total for both hair and makeup, if that, in the morning. The character that took the longest in the makeup chair was definitely Evie, because Evie required a whole wig transformation and a lot of makeup as well, because she had blue eyeliner and blue mascara, and even the costumes, stepping into the costumes was a process because they were layered and heavily detailed and a lot of zippers, and it was beautiful. Like stepping into Evie and that process of becoming her every morning was a big part of my becoming the character as well. My favorite costumes. That's tough. I mean, Evie definitely had spectacular costumes and definitely much more fairy tale and ethereal and extravagant costumes. But my character Cassie in the movie that will be coming out this year on Netflix has some really cool performance kind of rock and roll moments that I love. She's a singer-songwriter in like this awesome rock band, and there were some really cool performance moments that I loved. Then versus now, how I choose roles remains exactly the same. I made a promise to myself when I first started in the industry, when I first started auditioning, that I would never lend my body, my heart, my mind, my soul, or my voice to anything, any role, any song that wasn't genuinely in line with who I was and that didn't paint a beautiful picture of women. I was incapable of telling a story that was derogatory towards women, so I use it as my compass in picking all of my roles and picking complex and extraordinary women. I also tend to gravitate towards projects that are directed by women, and I've had the honor of mainly being directed by women. It's such a beautiful process, picking and falling in love with a character. The nerves on set or on stage. The nerves still exist, the butterflies still exist, and every first day of a movie, the night before, I think that I can't do it. And it's that doubt and that fear that causes you to second guess yourself. And then the second you step into her and you let go, it's the most beautiful feeling, because I love it so much and I expect so much of myself and I push myself so hard that I want to be able to be my best self every time I step onto set. And same goes with performing, and my team now just laughs at me because every time I'm gonna sing a song for the first time, I'm like, you guys know my process, I'm gonna freak out for a second, then I'm gonna sing it and I'll be like, okay, that wasn't too hard, I can do this. But every time I doubt if I can do it, and then they just laugh and they're like, of course you can, but there's just that little ounce of fear that I think drives me as well. My acting and musical inspiration then versus now, I would say still similar. You know, back then My icons were women like Barbra Streisand and Cher and Audrey Hepburn, these women who were trailblazers, who were not only musicians, but they were actors and producers and directors and philanthropists. Women like J-Lo, women like Alicia Keys, women like Beyonce. And then as I grew up in the world of Taylor Swift, and I'm so grateful to be a part of the Taylor Swift generation. And I adore Taylor Swift, and I fell in love with songwriting, and that's kind of the heart of my music is storytelling. So Taylor Swift is a huge inspiration for me. I don't remember not knowing that this was so much more than what I wanted to do, but this was who I was, who I am. You know, my mom will say that I was singing and dancing before I was walking and talking, and that's because this has always been me. It's like it runs through my blood. My favorite film to watch then versus now, I think might be the same. My favorite movie was Moulin Rouge, and I think it still is Moulin Rouge. Dream co-star. I feel like then I would have said Andrew Garfield, and I would still say Andrew Garfield because I think he's amazing. And female co-star, I would say Jessica Chastain because she's incredible. Collaborator in music, I think it's probably still the same. I would love to work with Taylor Swift. I would love to work with Ed Sheeran. And of the new generation of musicians, like Billie Eilish is extraordinary. Olivia is an incredible songwriter and storyteller. Dua Lipa is also incredible. Back then I would have said Ricky Martin. I would still say Ricky Martin because he is not only an incredible artist, you know, he sings in both languages, and he's just also the most incredible soul. So I would love to work with Ricky as well. The advice I give myself then versus now, what my mom tells me and reminds me of, and that is that every single moment is a gift. All we have promised to us is literally right here, right now. So how are you gonna live that moment? Are you gonna choose happiness in that moment? Then I think I would have said something similar, but I think now my focus has shifted more so on living more presently and choosing happiness every single day. And yes, still working as hard as I possibly can, but remembering to take a second and take a step back and be present. Being recognized on the street then versus now has definitely increased, which is only incredibly exciting. You know, last week I went to see, there was a billboard in LA with my album cover. We were just standing on a street corner, and it was beautiful that, you know, every 2 seconds somebody would stop by, or cars would stop and say, oh my gosh, is that you? Oh my God, your album, which is, to me, it really is the most beautiful feeling in the world, because it just means that my music and my art that I'm putting out in the world is making an impact, and it means something to someone. And to meet them and have that connection is just so beautiful. How I feel about social media then versus now, I did not have social media. My sister opened my first Twitter, Instagram, and I think Facebook account when I got my first job on Austin and Alley, and she said, welcome to the real world. And I think the password was dream big or something beautiful like that. And now I most definitely have social media. It's a huge part of my everyday. I think it's an incredible tool of connection. You know, it connects us with the whole entire world in the most beautiful way. And we've created a family there of millions of people who have had the privilege of being on this journey with me from the very beginning, and we grow every day a little bit more, and it's my greatest blessing, or one of my greatest blessings. Meeting other celebrities then versus now, I still feel like I still fangirl, because I still am a fan of these incredible artists that now I just get to be around more often. I was at the Oscars recently, and Nicole Kidman walked by me, and Rita Moreno, and, you know, Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield. But I think maybe I've gotten a little bit better at fangirling. The first time that I was at an awards show, I met J-Lo in her dressing room, which was really cool, and I remember I couldn't say a word because I was just in shock. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I love you to infinity and beyond. Mwah. Goodbye.